What is good, my beautiful souls? I hope you all are doing well. Thank you for tuning in. This is Lizz Grace Christie of Galactic Mythology, and this is Goddess Report, lucky number 13. If you add 1 plus 3 together, as in the practice of numerology, that would make this a number 4 energy, which I find fitting because I'm going to speak a lot about Saturn today, and the number 4 is a number that is energetically attuned to Saturn, as well as esoterically attuned to the sign of Aquarius. Very important players in today's episode. Yes, this is the Weekend Goddess Report, but we got some male energy to discuss. Ooh, and some news. If you participated in my 11 free 30-minute astrology giveaway, I emailed you. I've already given a few consultations to 3 winners. I plan to have a few more consultations tomorrow and throughout the next 2 weeks with all the 11 winners. And for those of you that did sign up but did not win a consultation, I emailed you as well. I am so grateful with the response that I got, and yes, the 11 free consultations did get claimed, and I did have some people that signed up but didn't get a spot within that 11. So if you are someone that signed up and you're waiting for a response from me, go check your email now. And if you do not see an email from galacticmythology@gmail.com, check your spam folder because it's likely in that folder. I know that Google and most emailing platforms do a silly little thing where if you don't have a email attached to your official domain, it will automatically flag it as spam. So go ahead and dig me out of your spam folder. And if you didn't participate at all because you're a new listener or you just suddenly became inspired to get a consultation, I offer consultations for a price, which you can look at on my website, galacticmythology.com, or you can just wait until the next time I do a giveaway. I foresee myself doing this again in the future because it just really made my heart sing to give back to the collective at large and specifically to you, my listeners. Thank you all. Carrying on to the rest of the transits for this weekend. This weekend, we are starting off with 2 major oppositions. Those 2 oppositions are shared between Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Libra and asteroid Chiron in the sign of Aries. And the other major opposition is shared between retrograde Mars in Cancer and Mercury in Capricorn, who is also conjunct Pallas Athena. So Mars is essentially in opposition to Mercury and Pallas Athena. If you are on YouTube and able to look at the charts on the video, you will see these 2 oppositions making the form of a cross, a red cross on the chart. This could be considered a grand square or grand cross. And this particular grand square is in the modality of the cardinal signs: Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Carrying on, we end the weekend on January 27th at the stroke of midnight with Venus going into an applied opposition to the lunar south node in Virgo, which implies Venus will be coming into a conjunction with Neptune and the lunar north node. If we recall from last weekend, Venus came to make a conjunction with the planet Saturn at the degree of 16 degrees in the sign of Pisces. I spoke about Saturn in last weekend's episode, and I am going to speak about him again. Also, in last weekend's episode for January 17th through the 20th, I talked about my little faux pas, which rolls into this weekend's episode and this weekend, January 24th through the 27th. Essentially, the story I'm going to be sharing with you later on in this episode actually happened to me last Wednesday on the 15th, which only amplified my limitation on time and producing an episode by my deadline last week, which is at 12 a.m. every Friday, Pacific Standard Time. You can go listen to my story in last week's episode if you're curious to get filled in on what I'm saying. But what's interesting is that the story I will end up sharing for you in this week's episode works for this weekend's goddess report, which only made me understand how last weekend played a significant role in seeding this weekend. And last weekend, Venus made a conjunction to Saturn in Pisces, and this weekend, Venus will be coming to make a conjunction to Neptune. So I feel like whatever was brewing last weekend with Venus conjunct our boundary keeper of the cosmos rolling over to Neptune, who is conjunct our freshly ingress north node, lunar north node in Pisces, suggests that we are now moving beyond the boundaries. So I really hope that you all spent time last weekend purifying your desires, Venus, because now we are about to cross the threshold. However, as mentioned in last weekend's report, we may be crossing this threshold, but we are still going to be in the birth canal for quite some time. Saturn, the keeper of this epic threshold I am talking about, wants us to move slow. For this weekend, Saturn is still resting in that 16th degree of Pisces, and that 16th degree of Pisces is in an inconjunct to Black Moon Lilith, who will be navigating between the degrees of the 19th through 10th degree of Libra. Black Moon Lilith is moving backwards at this time, meaning that there are two retrograde points making up the Grand Cross we are entering this weekend with on Friday, January 24th. So, what does it all mean? Sit tight. I got you all. Buckle up, because once again, this is going to be a wild ride. I'm not one to villainize the femme, but Black Moon Lilith in this case for this weekend feels like your curmudgeon-y stepmother or naysaying Nancy somewhere over there in the peanut gallery. She's opposite to the wounded healer, Chiron, the degree he was at on April 8th, 2024 for that solar eclipse that reached totality while sweeping across the United States. A solar eclipse can be another phrase for a new moon. So during the event of that solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024, the sun and moon were also present in that 19th degree of Aries. So this is a hot zone, and it seems to be a place that we cannot get enough of, which makes me think, what is it that we haven't solved yet? There seems to be some sort of ending that is pending. As much as we'd like to believe that we are in a new year, because yes, logically, according to the Gregorian calendar, we are in a new year. But in all reality, this cycle is still closing. Lilith, in the 19th degree of Libra, opposing Chiron at the 19th degree, is saying there's something that we're still avoiding, and this could be on a personal level and a mass conscious level, as in something that's out in the ethers outside of you, which with Lilith being in Libra would suggest that something outside of you is still a problem to your personal sovereignty. The other major opposition I want to talk about this weekend is concerning Mars retrograde, and Mars retrograde, who is experiencing and applying opposition from Mercury in Capricorn. Mercury being mental and all about the mind is suggesting that our minds are going overdrive this weekend. And ironically enough, I would consider Mercury to be more of the aggressor as opposed to Mars. Mars is pretty worn down at this point and has been retrograde for almost a month and has about a month more to go. So they're steady in the sauce. Mercury, however, is definitely the one that has a little bit more spontaneity in him in this case. So I would just say whatever new ideas come to mind this weekend are actually probably worth listening to. Considering the concept of non-resistance Pisces is all about surrender, and there is certainly a lot of Pisces in the air these days. So any spontaneity that comes your way this weekend, I would embrace. For example, I just had my car stop working while I was driving up a street called Interstate in Portland, which is somewhat of a busy street, but luckily when I was driving up that street today, it wasn't peak rush hour. And randomly, as I was driving, my car started throwing signals and I kept pressing on the gas and it was not going forward. And so I promptly just moved to the right as far as I could, and my car literally slowed to a stop. It was not going to go any further. So I put on my flashers and I quietly just accepted where I was because I'm an astrologer and I know the energy. And that story is a great example of what I'm trying to say. Don't force anything this weekend, but if something arises that is exciting and spontaneous and you're able to embrace it, I would say go ahead and do that. Where the spontaneity comes into my story is that this weekend, I have a stacked schedule. I have a DJ gig and I just got invited to a birthday party. So how am I going to get to any of those things if I don't have a car? Sure, I could call upon Ubers and Lyfts to get me from A to B for a cost. However, Saturn has been placing certain financial limitations on my bank account lately, so Ubers and Lyfts aren't very feasible for me. That means I have to choose to be vulnerable and ask for help from my community, which is kind of hard for me to do considering I have a south node in my first house, which is a cardinal house, traditionally ruled by the sign of Aries, the independent warrior spirit. So, vulnerability, it's kind of hard for me, but I could take this weekend to dive into my north node, which is in the 7th house, a house that is naturally ruled by the sign of Libra and has everything to do with the other as opposed to the self, which is Aries. Going back, what I'm saying is that I am given the opportunity this weekend with the limitation of my car being broken down to ask my community, the other, for a ride to help me get from A to B, to allow me to expand my horizons, to potentially help me cross this Saturnian karmic threshold that I'm personally under, and I know the collective consciousness is under as well. Having the North Node move into Pisces means that we are entering a place of expanse. I know that people are flirting with the idea of the Aquarian age. However, I don't think that any of us are really in the Aquarian age, despite Pluto being within the early degrees of Aquarius. Which brings me back to my other Saturnian point. Saturn rules over the domiciles of Capricorn and Aquarius. The sun just ingressed into Aquarius last weekend, and this last Tuesday on the 21st, the sun made a conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius can be considered a rule breaker, which is somewhat ironic to consider in ancient times, having Saturn be the ruler of such a rebellious sign. But this offers a little reflection of my next point. Have you ever considered the concept of divine limitations, such as limitations of your car dying as you're driving up a hill and your bank account on its last limbs? Can you find abundance this weekend, despite all of the physical limitations? This is somewhat a similar echo to last weekend's podcast, I realize, but as already mentioned, last weekend was planting the seeds for this weekend and the future moving forward. We may be experiencing deja vu, which makes a lot of sense considering Venus coming to make a connection to Neptune in Pisces. Both planet and sign have a reputation for being boundless and timeless, meaning we're going back to the future, folks. Furthermore, that activation of the 19th degree of Aries only throws us back to April 8th, 2024. So, what did you do last weekend? And what were you doing around April 8th, 2024? Pondering and deriving some synthesis between last weekend and April 8th may point you in the right direction of whatever tension is being pulled in this grand cross this weekend. Lilith represents the dark feminine, or rather, the bride that never was to Adam in the Garden of Eden. Lilith chose herself over a union. This weekend, you may be being asked to choose yourself over others. And in my case, this form of choosing myself is me asking for help from others. I'm, of course, leaving space for these friends of mine that I asked for help to say no. I'm in full Pisces surrender. So if someone expresses to me a boundary, I accept that and I will move on to find someone else who is available to help me get to point A to B. I will do my best not to take things personally because I respect that people are willing to take care of themselves, just like I am willing to ask for help as a form of self-care. The themes of surrender will be strong as the North Node continues to go through the sign of Pisces. The South Node in Virgo is adding a layer of mercurial frustration. And with Mercury opposing Mars this weekend, I'm letting you know right now that your ideas may be a little bigger than what is feasible right now. That is not to say that they are impossible. Let your minds dream big. However, do not create unnecessary tension and frustration, mental agitation, because you are perceiving that your physical reality around you does not match your imagination or what you feel that you deserve at this time. Collectively, we are going through a change, and the best thing that we can do for one another is be aware that everyone is on their own journey and to do our best to not take things personally, but to love ourselves greatly, and with that love for ourselves, love the other by offering compassion and space for them to grow. Let me tap into Pallas Athena's role for a second. She is conjunct Mercury throughout the weekend. Pallas, Athena, and Mercury get along with one another pretty well. They are siblings, and the characteristics and attributes that they possess complement one another. They accentuate more than anything. Mercury being a god of knowledge and spreading information. Pallas Athena being a goddess of wisdom and craft. Hands, using the hands, Mercury, Gemini, hands. They get along. This conjunction shared between the two could suggest an amplification of trickster energy. They are in the sign of Capricorn, so that would kind of ice their Joker energy. However, just because it's icy means it could sting a little bit more. So, as I said, embrace whatever comes your way this weekend. Do your best not to take things personally if you do find yourself around some hecklers and some of their comments burn you or sting you. I suggest just do your best to live within what life is handing you, and if it seems like a load of crap, don't take it. Part of surrender is knowing yourself well enough to know what not to carry along the way. And with that, I will bid you adieu. My name is Lizz Grace Christie. This is Galactic Mythology. Thank you for tuning in to this weekend's Goddess Report for January 24th through the 27th. If you would like to hear about my little faux pas that has to do with this weekend's report that I recorded in last weekend's report for January 17th through January 20th, go and tune into that episode and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all for tuning in, and you'll hear from me again next week. So much love and peace on Earth.